Hey, fantastic folks, good evening and welcome to yet another episode of Skibetto Talks. My apologies, I have not been recording. I did not record anything for the past month and a half because I was in Bangalore due to some family commitments, and I had a few workshop sessions also over there. So I was not able to, since I was not carrying my equipment with me, I was not able to record any sessions. So I am back. I am back with a very interesting topic for today. I hope you like the video. If you do, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Alright, the topic of discussion for today is something which has been a very popular topic recently, and there are a lot of posts on X, a lot of posts on social media about this recent incident which happened. What I'm talking about is the relationship between the Maldives and India. Today is not going to be about, I'm not going to delve into the subject of canceling tickets or going to another place for your vacation. What I want to bring in front of you is the geopolitical aspect of the entire situation, and how it is not just one incident, it's about a string of incidents which are connected together, and it might be a big epicenter of a war going on between India and China. So my focus is going to be on the geographical geopolitical situation which is going on in Maldives. All right, so the topic for today might sound a little bit strict, but it isn't that strict per se. Dear Maldives, I can predict your future. So, well, can I? Can I actually predict the future? Well, the answer to that is very simple, and it is that I can't. But what I can do is I can present an eventuality based on Maldives' choice with the help of historical data. So, we all know about how the chief executive of the world's largest democracy was racially trolled on X, formerly known as Twitter. And what was his crime, if you ask? Well, what he did was, posting some pictures of him visiting the island of Lakshadweep, an Indian island grouping in the Arabian Sea. And over there, his main agenda was to promote tourism and attract investment. Whatever your political leaning might be, keep that aside for a moment and think how the head of India's democratically elected government was attacked in such an unceremonious manner. Some comments made by three ministers in President Muizu's government showed the brazen anti Indian sentiment that the People's National Congress members foster for India. Regrettably, some comments were deeply racist in nature, and I would not like to talk about it because I don't want that negativity to hamper the session. We all know about it, so it doesn't make any sense to raise dead skeletons again. So, this session aims to elucidate what makes Maldives, a nation of 500,000 individuals living on a 300 square miles of territory, so important. Also, we are going to talk about how this is basically a shadow boxing match between the dragon and the tiger, and how the Maldives might face a similar fate uh, that we saw in our southern neighbor, Sri Lanka. Now, the question arises, what makes Maldives so special? It is their geographical position in the Indian Ocean and a unique geographical feature which is called a ridge. Maldives is a ridge extending to the ocean floor, basically creating a stone wall below the island. No ship can sail through these waters, hence, they have to pass through the northern or the southern tip of the island. This unique positioning compels the ships to pass through two narrow passages. The point here is that 80% of India's energy import from West Asia flows through these narrow passages, as well as 50% of India's trade and goods. The case is also similar to with China, where their commercial exports and import as well as energy supplies passes through this region. Any country which can establish a military presence in these waters can essentially cut off a crucial trade corridor for supplies of either India or China. So imagine that the Indian Ocean is a highway and Maldives is basically acting as a toll booth on that particular highway. From a strategic perspective, specifically in defense, Any country dominating these two channels can establish a naval blockade of the Indian subcontinent. This can be done without controlling the Strait of Hormuz, where China is in talks with Oman to establish a military base, and additionally, they already have control over Gwadar port in Pakistan, which is in close proximity to the Strait of Hormuz. And we all know that the Strait of Hormuz is the most valuable energy corridor in the world, a flashpoint between Iran, USA, and Saudi Arabia. This is the main reason nation no bigger than Mumbai has such a strong strategic value for both India and China. So these two narrow channels are of such strategic importance that the US has established a naval base in an island called Diego Garcia. Gwadar port, as I mentioned, is of prime importance to China, along with the Hambantota port in Sri Lanka, which is given to China on a 99-year-old lease. We all know that China has a pearl of strings policy which is creating important bases all around the Indian Ocean, which, when mobilized, can enforce a strict blockade of India, along with gaining strategic control of the Indian Ocean, which accounts for around 60% of the world's trade, which is basically around $7.1 trillion. India also has a necklace of diamond policies to counter China, but that is a topic of discussions for Maldives is also an important country which can become the next pearl in the string, and India is aware of that. From a historical perspective, India has been a natural ally of Maldives. In 2004, after the devastating tsunami, India was the first responder to Maldives, providing humanitarian assistance and medical aid, which was followed by assisting in rebuilding efforts. In November 1998, a group of rebels commanded by Abdullah Lutufi attempted a military coup to overthrow President Abdul Gayoom. Maldives sent out an SOS to the world, which no one responded to except India. We launched Operation Cactus, involving the elite soldiers of the Parachute Regiment, who brought the situation under control and safeguarded the democracy in Maldives. Once again, in 2018, when President Abdullah Yamin declared an emergency leading to a political turmoil and concerns about democratic institutions, India put a concerted effort in diplomacy to restore democratic rule in the island nation. In 2014, when Maldives' desalination plants were destroyed by fire, India diverted INS Sukanya and INS Deepak along with the two C-17 Globemasters to provide 200 tons of drinking water to the Maldives. China, on the other hand, has never executed any operations like these in Maldivian history. So the politics of President Mohammad Muizu is centered around an anti-India approach. His India Out campaign was central to his political journey, which aimed to rile up a malicious sentiment in Maldivians against India. He portrayed India as a big brother who repeatedly swayed its influence over the island nation. One of the prime examples he presented was the presence of 88 Indian military personnel along with two Dhruv light helicopters and a Dornier aircraft, which was mostly used in disaster relief, surveillance, maritime surveillance, and also rescue efforts. Absurdly, President Muizu also was suspicious of yoga. Most political analysts are not surprised because if you look at the situation opaquely, President Muizu is China's man in Maldives. He has a close historical relationship with China, and during his tenure as the infrastructure and housing minister somewhere in 2014, he signed multiple projects with China, like an order for constructing 1,500 housing units worth $138 million. Also, the Velana airport construction, which was worth $373 million, and also the Friendship Bridge, which is worth around $63 million. All in all, we are talking about close to 5 major development initiatives in 3 years. Now, here is the warning. Mali already owes 20% of its debt to China, which is around $1.5 billion, and it is also going back for seconds, very interestingly. China is a well known entity for its strategy to push development projects in vulnerable countries, which are generally executed by Chinese state owned companies. They shell out massive investments to build infrastructure and capabilities like the Belt and Road Initiative. The Chinese ask for vital economic and strategic resources as a compensation for them. Once these projects attain maturity, most countries are unable to pay back the debt to China, and in return, the Chinese ask for vital economic and strategic resources of a country as penalty.
Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Kenya, Zambia, Mongolia, and Laos. What do these countries have in common? These countries are either on the brink of bankruptcy or have already gone bankrupt. According to a report by the Associated Press, a dozen poor countries are on the verge of collapse under the weight of billions of dollars in foreign loans that they had taken from China.
The world owes $1.5 trillion in debt to China. This is not a new policy. I should declare here that in the majority of the 20th century, US was also doing the same, especially in countries in South American and African region like Bolivia, Guatemala, Sierra Leone, and South Africa. One prime example I can give here is Sri Lanka. Its debt versus GDP percentage of loans to China is worth around 110% of their GDP, and it had to give up facilities like Hambantota port, as I mentioned earlier. Interestingly, Mali is already in a debt trap. They owe 110% of their GDP to China, and the cost of servicing these loans already stands at $300 million. This also includes the interest payments. By 2026, the cost of servicing this debt will rise to $1 billion. The precious foreign exchange of Maldives has already dropped 15% in terms of reserves. Guess how much debt they owe to India? It is only $120 million. We can't blame the Maldives so brazenly, considering that they are already in a debt trap. Their hands are tied and their mouth is gagged. But what fails rationality is the fact that President Muizu is still asking for more Chinese participation in its economy. Despite of India being the largest source of tourists to this island nation, contributing 30% of its GDP, Muizu wants to replace that with more Chinese tourists. In fact, on his recent visit to China, he has already signed around 20 projects. All the MOUs have been signed and 20 projects are in the pipeline. So the biggest warning, apart from the point I have already stated, is that Italy is trying to pull out of the Belt and Road Initiative due to its exploitative nature, but it seems like a legal maze where Italy will not be able to come out of this trap without straining ties with China. So I will not delve into it anymore, but Maldives should comprehensively study what happened to Pakistan and Sri Lanka due to their dance with the dragon. This affair of seduction with the dragon can be very charming and exciting, but perhaps they should reflect on history and realize the famous saying, which is, a friend in need is a friend indeed. So that's how we wrap it up. Thank you so much for giving me your attention. I hope you liked the content. It was as short and crisp as possible. And if you do like it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I will be coming back to you with more and more case studies like this in the near future. So thank you, fantastic folks. See you on the other side.